Today, we're going to talk about the wild and absolutely true story of how one of the planet's most notorious pests actually became the hero that rebuilt a desert. It sounds impossible, I know, but just stick with me. Okay, so picture this. You go to Australia, and rabbits are, well, they're a plague, a devastating one. We're talking 200 million of them, outnumbering people almost 10 to 1. A total ecological disaster. But then you look over at China. And they're not trying to get rid of rabbits. They're importing millions of them on purpose, not as pests, but as partners. So what is going on here? How can the very same animal be a complete nightmare in one place and an environmental savior in another? Well, the answer to that question starts in a place that used to be called the Sea of Death. Our story really kicks off in China's Kubuqi Desert. Now, this isn't just any desert. It's the 7th largest in the country. And for decades, it was like this aggressive, unstoppable monster, just growing and swallowing up everything in its path. And there's a name for that destructive process. It's called desertification. It's basically when perfectly good, fertile land just dries up and turns into a barren, useless desert. And in the Kubuqi, this was happening at a truly terrifying speed. And I'm not exaggerating about the speed. Get this. Every single year, the Kubuqi Desert would just consume another 500,000 acres of usable land. It was like this relentless tide of sand that just never, ever stopped. For years, people tried to fight back. I mean, they tried everything. Big government projects, building special stations to control the sand, planting trees, but nothing seemed to work. The Sea of Death just kept on winning. It seemed completely hopeless, until one guy came along with an idea that everyone else thought was just plain crazy. A local entrepreneur named Wang Wenbiao decided, you know what? I'm going to put my own money into fixing this. And his plan? He was going to plant an entire forest right in the middle of this barren wasteland. And his plan was actually pretty clever. He picked hardy willow trees because their roots can dig down an insane 300 feet to find water. He protected the little saplings from the harsh winds with these squares made of dry bushes. And here was the end game. He'd eventually sell the wood for paper and furniture, creating a business that could actually sustain itself. You know what? For 3 years, it was working. But then they hit a massive roadblock. See, to make the willow wood really valuable, you have to constantly trim off the new shoots so the main trunk grows thick and strong. But how on earth do you do that for thousands of trees in the middle of a remote desert? It was impossibly expensive, and the whole project was right on the verge of failing. The solution to this giant industrial problem wasn't some new machine or a bigger workforce. The solution was an animal, specifically the Rex rabbit. And this is where it gets brilliant. The rabbits basically had 4 jobs. First, they were the perfect little pruners, nibbling on those new willow shoots for free, which made the trees thicker and more valuable. Second, they were walking fertilizer factories, enriching the sandy soil wherever they went. Third, they were accidental gardeners, spreading grass seeds around in their droppings. And finally, they were a whole new economic engine. Their fur is valuable, and, well, they're rabbits, so they created a business all by themselves. It was a perfect self-sustaining loop. So what happened next was just astounding. This partnership between humans, trees, and rabbits didn't just stop the desert, it started to reverse it. It literally began to turn sand into gold. And the results are just staggering. In a little over 30 years, they've managed to turn over 6,000 square kilometers of the Kubuqi green again. Let that sink in. That is a full 1/3 of the entire desert, reclaimed. And this wasn't just an environmental win, it created a whole new economy. More than 100,000 people now have jobs because of this new green industry. That's over 100,000 livelihoods created out of sand. For the local people who once had to flee the desert, life has been completely transformed. The average farmer in the area now makes around $9,600 a year. They went from escaping poverty to building wealth right where they grew up. So let's go back to that first question. Why a plague in Australia but a blessing in China? It all boils down to one word: control. In Australia, the rabbits were just released into the wild with no natural predators, and their population exploded. But in China, they were part of a managed, controlled system. They were working in harmony with the environment and the economy. But the story doesn't end there. just when you thought this whole thing couldn't get any cooler, they added one final, massive element that basically put the entire system into overdrive. They built a gigantic solar power plant right in the middle of the desert. And this isn't just any solar plant. It's so huge and uniquely shaped like a galloping horse that it's officially in the Guinness World Records as the world's largest solar panel image. And here is the absolute genius part. The solar farm isn't separate from the ecosystem, it's integrated into it. The panels create shade, which reduces water evaporation and lets grass grow underneath. And guess who provides the free mowing service? Yep, the Rex rabbits. Their droppings fertilize the ground, and the entire greening cycle starts all over again, now supercharged with clean energy. The impact of this final move is just immense. It's generating tons of clean energy, it has cut CO2 emissions by 1.8 million tons, and the panels themselves act as a windbreak, literally cutting the wind speed in half and helping the land heal even faster. So, with some clever thinking and a very unlikely partnership with a small animal, they transformed a place once known as the Sea of Death into a vibrant, thriving sea of life. The Kubuqi model is just this incredible proof that when human ingenuity works with nature instead of against it, even the most daunting challenges can be overcome. It leaves us with a pretty powerful question, doesn't it? If we actually have the tools to turn a desert into a self-sustaining oasis, what other impossible problems are we ready to solve?